Howdy, 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 my name's Anachi Sasuke, and welcome back to Let's Read SCP Foundation Wiki, since that seems to have finally nailed down what I will be calling this. Now, in the last episode, we finally got to SCP-100, which was Jamaican Joe's Junkyard Jubilee. In this episode, we're going to start with the Hungry Bag and see how far I can get before I stop being able to breathe, since that seems to be a thing that happens whenever I read the SCP Foundation Wiki, as I stop being able to breathe after a certain point. So, It's Euclid, which I guess makes sense if it's something called the Hungry Bag. SCP-101 is currently stored in the sub-basement 02 of Site-19, inside of a standard fireproof document lockbox with a reinforced concrete room of standard facility size. Damn! Said room has been fitted externally with a standard double-door airlock and internally fitted with an appropriate safety response equipment as well as biological response equipment. Only personnel of Level 3 are permitted to enter the SCP-101 holding room. Personnel of Level 2 or lower are permitted to interact with 101 only with directives from Level 3 or higher personnel, or with standing directives. The airlock for 101 is set to a standard 10-minute cycle, during which standard screening scans for biological or environmental hazards will be made. 101 is under standing directives for use during 0600 and 2000 hours. Which I think is 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Outside of the airlock of the holding room for 101, two Level 2 security guards guards, they might not be for security, are to be posted at all times with overlapping shifts. Now, to describe the thing. 101 appears to be a satchel or bag of intermittent size, with observations ranging from an opening of 15 centimeters in diameter to 70 centimeters in diameter. The depth of the container has varied with no standard mean of equality to the relative diameter. The primary feature of 101 is what appears to be a semi-humanoid mouth contained within the opening of the bag, with a mean standard of 31 centimeters of depth into the container, without more than 2 standard deviations of variance, regardless of the apparent external depth of the container. The mouth consists of 32 teeth of an off-white hue, all of equal shape and size, consisting solely of incisors of approximately 10 centimeters in length. Ew. It has been observed, albeit not measured with accuracy, that within the mouth there is a tongue of indeterminate length, with observations ranging from 50 centimeters to 3.5 meters. The mouth appears wet and spongy, however all attempts at removal of possible fluids have resulted in failure with damage to the instruments and harm to the personnel. The current decision is that 101 may be part of a larger entity of extra-dimensional origin. 101 is not externally mobile, however internal movements within the container can affect minor movements of the exterior of the container that consists of 101's covering. It is understood that due to the nature of the size and probabilities of the container and object within, the object is of extra-dimensional interaction, if not origin. 101 has exhibited polymorphic abilities as well as a low level of sentience. The photo on file depicts the item as it was discovered in 1979 in a remote area of the Cascade Mountains in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. Found along with 101 was the decayed remains of a human clad in a weathered black suit, seated upon an also weathered parachute, missing the right arm up to the joint of the shoulder, which appeared to have bite marks through the remaining bones. Assumed to have been inflicted by 101. Speculation as to the identity of the deceased individual has led researchers to the conclusion that this was one D.B. Cooper, remains removed for the purposes of concealing the existence of 101. "101 has since changed appearance and shape with the apparent end of enticing a subject into reaching into the container. These appearances have ranged from money satchels to deli boxes to Krispy Kreme containers to candy bags, all of which have an external appearance that is indistinguishable from that of the real containers. It has been proposed by Dr. Somebody that 101 is semi-sentient in its attempts to lure subjects in. At the recommendation of data expunged, 101 is currently in use as a means of refuse disposal for Site-19. 101 has not shown adverse reaction to having foreign matters introduced to it, including, but not limited to, paper products, sewage, cafeteria refuse, metals, polymers, oils, and other products which are not consumable by any known biological entity. Addendum number 1. So far, 101 has not exhibited any abnormal behaviors from the standards observed, nor has 101 emitted any substances either foreign, extra-dimensional, or abnormal. However, it is the concern of Dr. Blank that 101 may produce an emission in the future. Addendum 2. Further examination of the direction of Dr. Blank has determined that 101 is ideal for the disposal of hazardous waste and byproducts of other SCP-related projects. Dr. Blank is noted as being opposed to this measure, however, 05 Blank has given authorization for the project to continue. Okay, next up is property of Marshall, Carter, and Dark Limited. Is this going to be a long one? Nope, it's Euclid though. SCP-102 is currently in the possession of Marshall, Carter, and Dark Limited because ownership appears to be a binding, deed-based legalistic agreement independent of eminent domain. 102 cannot be transferred to Foundation control in the foreseeable future. Description: 101 is a pair of standalone condominium-style beach houses located at blank but blank blank blank, currently owned by Marshall, Carter, and Dark Limited, through the use of a dummy corporation known as Geyser Housing Associates, and rented to McD members as a vacation home for those with discerning tastes in the eclectic adventures of privileged life. The two share similar properties, although data expunged. 1021 is the house on the left, number blank. When a person whose name is not on the lease of 1021 enters the building, its interior appears as that of a crumbling empty house with the prone body of the current leaseholder just inside the doorway as if the house is occupied. Forensics tests on materials recovered from within the house show it to have been abandoned since the mid to late 70s. All photographs taken within 1021 corroborate this, regardless of the lease status of the photographer. However, when the leaseholder of the house enters via the front door, they find themselves in a fairly normal, well-kept condominium decorated with a nautical theme. Often, they report a sensation of dizziness upon entering, which fades within a few seconds. When the leaseholder of 1021 exits the building, they become what is to all intents and purposes an incorporeal spiritual manifestation capable of willful invisibility, moving through solid objects unimpeded. They enter and remain in this state each time they leave the house for the duration of the lease. At the conclusion of their lease, or at any time they willfully break the terms of said lease, they fall briefly unconscious and awaken on the floor at the front entrance of 1021, which appears to them as it does to any non-leaseholder. No bodies have been observed being removed from the house prematurely. SCP-1022 is the house on the right, number blank. At first glance, the effect of 1022 is identical to 1021. However, data expunged, advanced decay followed by data expunged. Leaseholders of 1022 who do not exit the building promptly after the cessation of their contract are to be declared missing, presumed dead, 30 days following the end of their lease. Leaseholders who do exit the building are to be administered a regimen of steroid-based enhancers to counter the data expunge constantly for signs of psychological aberration. Addendum. All information in this report is unverified, though details are consistent from multiple sources. The content of this report was taken from interviews with D-Class personnel numbers 1070869, death sentence, rape, murder, 1033654, life without parole, aggravated sexual assault on a minor, and 33706333, death sentence, redacted. All of whom were frequent tenants of 1021 prior to incarceration. It is theorized that D1033654 made use of 1021's effect to commit data expunged. See logs 103123 for full transcripts. I would, but they're not here. Anywho. The Never Hungry Man. Guess he doesn't like TV dinners. What the fuck is that? It's Euclid. Okay, so. Status recontained. The procedures used to be does not require any specific or strict containment procedures. If it begins to show any signs of distress or erratic behavior, 103 is to be moved to a 5x5 room while awaiting medical examination. Now it says NA, see Addendum 103A and 103B. SCP-103 is to be maintained in a medically induced vegetative state to ensure compliance. It is to be kept alive with regular data expunged, certain that the incisions are not allowed to heal, keeping 103's stomach cavity exposed at all times. Class 4 Foundation restricted medical kit is to be employed by all personnel interacting with 103. All redacted from 103 are to be incinerated. At no time should any personnel come into unprotected contact with any object or substance removed from it. Description: 103 appears to be an average human male in his mid-40s. Subject has been measured at 190 centimeters in height. What does that mean? Uh, 6'2", weighing 100 kilograms. Subject was born in 19-something on something-something. The subject has no known living relatives at this time. Subject checked into a small local hospital in mid-April at approximately 9:30 at night. The subject explained to the doctor and staff that he had not eaten for weeks due to not feeling any effects of hunger. After an initial examination, 103 appeared to be perfectly healthy despite his condition. It continued to explain to the staff that he didn't feel any need to eat. What it used to say was, upon obtaining and studying 103, it appears that any solid or liquid coming into contact with the inside of his stomach disappears instantaneously. Despite this condition, 103 appears to be perfectly healthy. At this point, it is unknown how he obtains the nutrients that a human would need to survive, or where the provided food ends up after consumption. He does not expel any waste. He is reported becoming thirsty as a normal human would. Due to this, a standard cooler with 12 bottles of fresh spring water to be delivered to his room at 6:30 a.m. every morning. 103 has shown no signs of hostility towards our staff, occasionally engaging in conversation and board games with staff. And then it said, see addendum through 103B. Okay, so first addendum. All testing data to all testing to date has been inconclusive. I was reading 2 lines at the same time. It is unlikely that further testing will teach us anything new. Research terminated. Subject released, but to remain under observation and report for mandatory medical examination on a monthly basis. 103 has been provided with a means of contacting Foundation personnel in the event of a change in condition. Research logs are to remain on file. 103B addendum. On blank blank blank, 103 reported to a Foundation medical facility. 103 was observed at this time to be vomiting copious amounts of blood in excess of blank liters, something double digits. This blood did not match 103's blood type, nor did it data expunged. A stomach pump procedure was attempted, but failed due to the volume of blood being produced. Within blank hours, blood flow ceased. Shortly thereafter, Foundation medical personnel initiated an exploratory surgical procedure. Upon opening 103's stomach cavity, Dr. Yoon noted several protrusions along the outer lining of the stomach, and an approximation of a human face. Ugh. When Dr. Yoon attempted a biopsy, the protrusions suddenly retreated, implying that they were the imprint of a foreign body inside the stomach. Dr. Yoon was instructed to continue an exploratory procedure and performed admirably. His reluctance was noted on record and will be submitted as evidence in the hearings of Supervisor Blank's court-martial procedure. When the stomach was opened, data expunged Ayler to cestoid data expunged, fatalities including Dr. Yoon, Research Assistant Sims, and Research Assistant Renfield. Medical Supervisor Blank's negligence is under review. 103 has been reclassified Euclid and recontained with updated containment protocols. Okay, so apparently when he tried to do surgery on the thing's stomach, something happened that killed everybody in the room, and that the guy who was overseeing it is now being court-martialed. Huh. Okay, so next up is the Lonely Ball, which is also Euclid. SCP-104 is currently contained in a steel box with an electronic keypad access. Access is to be restricted to Class 3 and higher. Do not allow 104 to come in contact with any living tissue. Any and all interaction with 104 is to be handled by robotic assistants or with full hazmat suits and gloves. Anyone found to be imprinted by 104 must submit for unprinting. Failure to do so within 24 hours of exposure will result in termination. The unprinting sounds like termination, so I guess not? The lack of breathing is already starting. 104 is a sphere, 35.5 centimeters, 14 inches, around and weighing 2.3 kilograms, 5 pounds. The outside is glass and very smooth, coating the sphere in a layer of 6 millimeters thick. Under this layer is an extremely intricate design of a very thin black and white lines. The inner core is a delicately carved ball of wood, giving slight texture to the line design. The design itself is unimaginably complex, not context, and seems to form something of a Rorschach test, as all viewers seem to have a different interpretation. Movement or a ticking sound from inside the sphere has been reported, but at this time is unconfirmed. Whenever a human subject touches 104 in its unprinted state, it will imprint on the subject. If the imprinted subject moves more than 9 meters from 104 for more than 5 minutes, 104 will appear within 2 meters of the imprinted subject, 7 feet. This shift appears instantaneous, disappearing and reappearing in less than a nanosecond, regardless of distance or intervening objects. Every hour that subject remains within 9 meters of 104, it will move 1 foot closer to the subject until it is touching them. When 104 is touching its imprinted subject, it will not attempt to move closer. 104 will not exhibit this behavior to non-imprinted subjects and will only imprint on one subject at a time. Thick cloth or metal appears to block the imprinting in most cases. Testing of it with multiple instances of 1680 suggests that imprinting is not genetically based, as 104 does not change behaviors when faced with multiple genetically identical subjects. 104 also appears to be indestructible in that it always appears whole and undamaged after reappearing. Even after being crushed and incinerated, 104 will reappear whole and undamaged if its imprinted subject is outside of its minimum range for more than 5 minutes. 104 causes paranoia and anger in most subjects, but this is not an effect of the sphere, as some are wholly unaffected by the constant presence of 104 if slightly annoyed at times. 104 can only be unimprinted if the subject is killed or enters a near-death-like state. 104 will then enter its unimprinted state until touched. Thick gloves appear to block the imprinting process as long as they are more than 13 millimeters thick. It was recovered in a flea market from a man carrying it in a bowling bag. The man never identified himself and sold it to Agent Blank for a quarter, thanking him profusely before running off. I told you unprinted sounded like they were going to be killed. Notes: 104 1108R. It has been theorized that 104 is some form of extra-dimensional probe or recording device. This appears to be unlikely, as it appears to be made of terrestrial materials and has no means by which to record or observe anything. However, with few other explanations for its odd behavior, the theory is being investigated. Dr. Blank. Sorry for all the sniffling. Like I said, starting to lose the ability to breathe, but I want to get a few more entries in before that makes me have to stop. So next up is Iris, which is safe. It's the least sounding safe thing I've read so far, but it's the safe one. SCP-105 is implanted with a tracking device and is currently housed at Site-17. 105 is currently allowed Class 3 restricted socialization privileges with approved site personnel, granted based on continued good behavior and cooperation with Foundation personnel. Its personal camera, designated 105B, is contained in a locked safe deposit box at Site-19's high-value item storage facility. Hivisf. Standard positive action defenses, explosive, chemical, biological, and mimetic, are to be in place at all times while 105B is within containment. 105 and 105B or any other camera are only to be allowed to come in contact with approval of the current managing researcher. Okay, so 105, formerly known as Iris Thompson, is a female human of European descent. Records indicate that she was born in blank, making her blank years old at time of acquisition. She has blonde hair and blue eyes, and at the time of this article is 1.5 meters in height and 50 kilograms in weight, whatever those numbers end up meaning. She does not appear to have any out-of-the-ordinary physical characteristics and appears to be, for all intents and purposes, a normal human being in good health. 105B is a Polaroid one-step 600 camera manufactured in 1982. It does not appear to have any out-of-the-ordinary physical characteristics and appears to be, for all intents and purposes, a normal Polaroid camera. I was reading too quick. Operating normally for all persons inside of 105, aside from 105. When she holds a photograph taken by it, the photograph changes from a still image to that of a real-time image of the location in question. She is also able to reach through the photograph and manipulate objects within reach of the original point at which the photograph was taken. Persons witnessing this manipulation report seeing a disembodied female hand, determined to be that of 105, reaching out from an invisible portal and carrying out the actions indicated. 105B and the photographs taken by said camera have no unusual properties when used by any other person. She has demonstrated limited ability to manipulate objects through other photographs, but can only achieve fine control using photographs taken through 105B. So far, she has only been able to significantly advance her ability by using photographs taken by 105B. Appendix 1, Circumstances of Acquisition. 105 was brought to the Foundation's attention shortly after the murder of her boyfriend. She claimed to have been on the phone with the victim at the time of his murder, prompting her to hurry to his side. However, telephone records did not correspond to her story, making her suspect in the murder. She informed her lawyer that she had in fact witnessed the murder through a photograph she had taken with her boyfriend several days prior. The attorney in question disregarded the story and recommended that the subject plead guilty. Subject refused to do so and subsequently told her story in court, offering to demonstrate her ability. This led to Foundation contact. Subject was immediately contained by the Foundation. Foundation personnel retrieved 105B from 105's home, replacing it with an identical model, and returned it to her. 105's parents were informed that she was killed during the botched escape of another patient while both were in custody of the blank psychiatric care facility. Appendix 2, excerpt from interview log 105-8-44-26, dated blank blank blank. Begin log, Dr. Blank. Please give a brief personal introduction, including date and place of birth, and your name. Okay. My name is Iris Thompson. I was born in Phoenix, Arizona on May 12th. Redacted. Dr. Blank? Good. First question. When did you become aware of your abilities? I'm not sure, but I think I was either 10 or 11. I remember because I was looking at a picture of the ocean and I noticed the waves began moving. How did your parents respond when you told them? They just said I had an overactive imagination. When did you discover that you were able to manipulate objects through a photograph? It first happened when I was 11, 12 maybe? My family took a trip to the Grand Canyon. I looked through the photo album after we got home and brushed my hand up against one by accident. When I did, I pushed a rock over the edge, falling into the canyon. I could actually hear it clatter on the way down. Go on. I became fascinated with photography after that. Most of the time it didn't work with photographs I took, but my parents got me a Polaroid one-step 600 camera. I've been begging for them to get it since Christmas. Start smiling. After I got the camera, the photographs got easier to interact with. This is the camera we refer to as 105B, your personal camera? Yes, sir. How many photos can you focus on at one time? I've gotten up to 10 at once with my personal camera, but I'm sure I could do more eventually. What's your impression of your time with the Foundation so far? Remain silent. Please do answer. We don't take offense at these things. It's sort of like new prison, new warden, but I know it's better than what could have happened to me. You've been very cooperative during your time here. I'm a pretty well-behaved sort of person. I also like doing the experiments. Some of the things with photographs I would never have thought of. Do you know why I'm asking you these questions, Iris? No, sir. We've been setting up a special program. If it goes through, you'll be occasionally allowed to leave the site and move about in the outside world. All we ask of you in return are a few favors. Are you interested? End log. History of service with Mobile Task Force Omega-7. 105 was the second humanoid SCP recruited to Mobile Task Force Omega-7 under the Pandora's Box initiative. Unlike Team Able, associated with, Able, which was assigned to strike and capture operations, Team Iris had the primary mission of reconnaissance and intelligence gathering. Team Iris carried out over 20 missions in cooperation with the Bow Commission. These missions were carried out swiftly and without incident. The first disciplinary incident involving 105 involved the escalation of Team Iris's mission from reconnaissance to wet work. 105 violently opposed the use of her abilities to carry out assassinations, even after members of the Bow Commission repeatedly attempted to secure her cooperation. See interview log 105-21-65-43. During these events, 105 became emotionally distressed and attempted to deceive Foundation personnel into believing that her anomalous traits had disappeared. Dr. Somebody submitted a report recommending that 105 be reclassified as neutralized, undergo amnestic treatment, and be released to the public with regular monitoring. This recommendation was denied. Following this, Dr. Blank aided 105 in a containment breach aiming to escape Foundation custody. This breach was unsuccessful and 105 was recontained. See Incident X45 Site 17. Investigation afterwards determined that Dr. Blank had intentionally encouraged 105 to claim loss of anomalous abilities. 105 redemonstrated her anomalous abilities in exchange for restoration of limited privileges. Following the end of the Pandora's Box initiative, all Mobile Task Force Omega-17s were disbanded, and 105 returned to Site 17. Because of the security risk she represents and lack of current utility, 105 is presently not allowed access to 105B. All further information regarding Mobile Task Force Omega-7 is sealed by order of the Records and Information Security Administration. So, RESA. Director Blank Blank, Records and Information Security Administration. Addendum 4, Special Note regarding current containment status. Following Incident R1300 Site 17, many formal and informal reports have been made regarding 105 and a supposed connection to Mobile Task Force Alpha 9. These reports constitute a serious breach of security. All information regarding Mobile Task Force Alpha 9 is restricted. All information regarding current research on anomalous characteristics of 105 is restricted. All reports or rumors regarding any current or recent use of 105 as a Foundation asset are to be considered categorically false and should be reported to the Records and Information Security Administration. Director Blank Blank, Records and Information Security Administration. Okay, so first let's see what the incident was. I'm not sure who's telling this story or if it's just being read. There were explosions on site. It wasn't entirely unheard of, but these didn't seem controlled. Also not unheard of, but it still made Iris nervous. The door to her cell opened and an agent stood there. He was younger, with Mexican features, and she didn't recognize him. 105, get up. We need you to move you. She could tell he was new. Most of the site personnel were used to calling her real name outside of official documentation. The shrinks thought it would be helpful in keeping her emotionally stable. He had to laugh. Should I take anything? She asked as she got up from her seat. No time. We'll send someone for it later. He motioned for her to hurry. She walked to the door. She was long past the time where she resisted or tried to escape. Where would she go? She'd probably just end up somewhere worse. He led her into the hallway and didn't bother to re-secure the door. She realized then that things were extremely wrong rather than the baseline of very wrong she'd grown accustomed to. He hesitated a moment, then said, "This way." She almost offered to guide him, but he probably wasn't prepared for a skip to show that kind of initiative. There were gunshots nearby. "Stay behind me." The agent pulled out his sidearm. There were dead bodies in the hall. In the next hallway, 2 were site security. A third wore an unfamiliar black uniform. As the agent walked through the next door, there was a gunshot and the back of his head blossomed outward. Iris crouched in the frame of another door, pressed as hard as she could into the shallow alcove. She listened as someone walked up to the door. She held her breath and waited to see if they'd walk in or lean in far enough to see her. After a moment, she heard them turn and walk away. She stood still a moment longer, then quietly reached down and picked up the dead agent's sidearm. This broke any number of rules, but Rule 1 was to avoid dying in a senseless firefight, and you had to prioritize in these situations. She took a different hallway. Hopefully she'd run into someone who could help her. Hopefully they wouldn't shoot her. That'd be nice. There were different containment rooms, but she avoided those. You never knew what was in there. And anyway, that was probably what the guys in black suits were after. Unless they were really interested in Dr. Jones' paperclip collection. In the next hallway, the containment chamber had been opened and the door torn off its hinges. There were several black-clad bodies on the floor. Standing above them, tearing the flesh off a humorist, was an ogre. 8 feet tall, with bulbous nose, pointed head, and sharpened teeth, he smiled wickedly from around his meal. "Ah, ma chérie, you joined the party?" She tightened her grip on the sidearm and forced herself to remain calm. "Ferdinand, will you take a quick, picnic with me? I am having my morning exercise." "No, thank you," she said. She began to walk past him. Not fast, not running. Predators chase things that run. "As you like. Perhaps we meet again later, eh? A little rendezvous? Très romantique?" He chortled around his clenched teeth. Iris suppressed a small shudder. Still, bad as Ferdinand was, he couldn't hold a candle to him. As she entered the next doorway, she saw the shape of a cow, but completely, utterly black. The area around it appeared slightly distorted, as though it were doing something with the light. It started moving towards Iris, who immediately turned tail. She'd take her chances with the men in black. At least she knew what the bullets did. She heard it picking up speed, and she turned a corner, slipped through a door, and closed it. As she leaned against the door and caught her breath, she heard the staccato call of gunfire. She dropped to the floor, counted to 3, cursed the cow thing silently, and then looked up. There were 5 black-clad men firing down the hallway, perhaps 10 feet away, using an overturned desk as makeshift cover. She couldn't tell what they were shooting at from her position, but the bullets flying overhead suggested site security wasn't quite out of the fight yet. However, there wasn't too much gunfire coming from that direction. So compared to the amount of lead the black suits were throwing down the hall, it seemed like the Foundation was outnumbered, at least in this hallway. She considered her options. She could wait and hope the Foundation would send reinforcements, but that seemed chancy. Whoever this was, they were organized and probably had a good evacuation strategy planned. Once they realized she was there, she could try playing dead, but even a dead skip could be a useful skip, and they'd figure out she was pretending pretty quickly. She considered it unlikely whoever it was would treat her as well as the Foundation. Only one option, then. She took a knee, carefully took aim, and shot the closest man in the back of the head. Then the next one, and the one after him. It was easy. That was what she hated about it, how easy it was. There was a click and the gun refused to fire. Without even thinking, she went back to her immediate actions. She slammed the magazine with the heel of her left hand, then slid the rack back and a jammed bullet flew out. The other 2 were starting to realize there was a problem, and she shot the 4th. The 5th almost had her, but then gunfire from further back took him down. It was only as he fell to the ground she started to feel again, and the gorge rose in her throat. "It's me," she called. "SCP-105. They're dead." She dropped the gun, kicked it forward, and then knelt down with her hands on the back of her head until the agents got her and took her to safety. You need to see this, ma'am. The man was nervous, but he was always nervous, like a small dog, really. What is it? She asked. She was still a bit tired. It had been a long night the night before. It usually was, but the last time he told her she needed to do something, there was an active attempt on her life. She was good at picking up things like that. Footage from the latest containment breach. Think you should pay special attention here. He jumped to a point on the tapes to show a young woman. Yes? She said. Then, yes, I see. She thought for a moment. Yes, good work, Henry. You were right. I did need to see this. She opened a very special program on her phone. We all need to see this, I think. Okay, I'm not sure what the hell that means, but let's see what Mobile Task Force Alpha 9 is. Oh. Do you remember A9 Resurrection Part 0 before Alpha 9? What is this? In which Part 0 before Alpha 9, in which the past informs the present. I quit by the Duckman. I want to be able to sleep, not thinking about whether the decision I made that day. Snakes and ladders. She drew a butterfly in her poetry notebook, labeled it 408, and added in parentheses, someday. Okay, so this right here is probably going to take a couple of episodes by itself. So I'm going to end this episode here, and the next episode will be A9 Resurrection, because that's the last thing that was in entry 105. So, in the next episode, hopefully just the next episode, but we'll see. We're going to handle all this shit. And then if we can get through all of this in one episode, then after that we'll move on to SCP-106. But I'm not expecting that. I'm expecting this to take at least 3 episodes. I mean, the day everything changed is 5 parts. This is going to take a while. So, this has been Inashi Sasuke. This was episode 25 of Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki, and I will see you in the next episode. Later.